Jobs or welfare, independence or dependence. These are the stark choices by which Herman Cain hopes to peel off some of the black votes from President Obama in the race for the presidency. Now, Cain says that for too long, African Americans have been swayed by liberal promises for a welfare state, but the government handouts have created a sense of dependency on generations of recipients, instead of building the kind of independence necessary to lift oneself out of poverty. Will that message of self-reliance from a very self-reliant, successful black businessman like Herman Cain strike a chord in the black and Hispanic communities? We ask Democratic strategist Carl Jeffers and Tea Party 365 co-founder David Webb. David, do you think he'll succeed at this?
Well, he'll succeed with a part of the population. And I think right now, given the 80s college graduates that have raised kids that are now in college, are more vested in the free market system, they're looking at it within their own microcosm from that point. And I think that's right. But here's where it fails. They are being pushed by black peer pressure. They go to church, they go out in the community, and you're being pushed to be a liberal.
All right, but Carl, you can't argue with the record of Herman Cain. Herman Cain is speaking from the truth. I mean, his parents were both poor folks who tried to make their way up, and they did. They raised a great kid, but he's been successful as a businessman, working for the Federal Reserve of Kansas City, doing everything. This is a guy who's speaking from experience.
Well, you know, David, no one's trying to argue with his record. His record is tremendous, and in fact, the results of his record belie the argument about self-reliance as a new approach, a new change of pace for minorities and African Americans and Hispanics. African Americans for centuries have had to rely on self-reliance in order to move up at all in the face of obstacles that were not present for other populations. And it is, in fact, insulting for Herman Cain or for David Webb or for the Tea Party or anybody to suggest that African Americans have been deceived and misled by Democrats for all these years. Before the two Tea Party congressmen were elected this past year, 46 congressmen in the United States Congress, none of them were Republicans. African Americans are not stupid. The reason that they were all Democrats is because Republicans campaign for the black vote. Then when they don't get it, the first day they are elected, what do? They start cutting programs that are designed to help blacks.
David Webb,
That's why African Americans
not
vote
even
for
close. Here's what's happened. If you have a population and you give them entitlements and you bind them generationally for 50 years since the Great Society started, then what you do is you create an environment where they never get out of it. Look at failures in the black community. Real black empowerment is take your own. Family structure. All right, 80% of black youths born to single parents, 59% of black women, 2 or more children by different fathers. The community's been shattered and flipped since the 60s when 80% were born to 2-parent households.
Of course, that same trend has been happening in all races.
But what happens now, David, is they don't get the family structure. They don't get the education. When you don't have the education and the failures in the inner cities, you don't have the economic
Carl
empowerment.
Jeffers, do you deny that one of the problems with government assistance is it creates a sense of dependency on the people on it, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, whatever?
Well, first of all, I'm not on trial here, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to plead that we can move for summary judgment, because the reality is that those government programs are designed to help the least of these in our society, while the top benefit from the same kinds of corporate welfare.
But
we cannot look at that as strapping them.
I think we all agree corporate welfare is awful, and we're against any of that. But don't you worry that welfare does create a sense of dependence on the recipients?
Well, welfare can create a sense of dependency when it is not surrounded by other symbols of encouragement, like educational improvements and other things in the social community,
not even close,
including relationships with police, to help them do better.
Dave, here's a simple
hold on.
Here's a simple example coming from a social worker that I met with last week. Soon as the child of a welfare recipient reaches 18, they open up a case file for that young black woman. They literally channel you into the system. They get the doctors to give you their ratings. They're hired into the system. They literally have created a generational problem. And look at who the people that have used them in this respect. Maxine Waters, hundreds of millions of dollars in value. Look at what she's done. Sheila Jackson Lee, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. By the way, the new generation, Andre Carson Jr. and Jesse Jackson Jr.
Hold on, David. Go ahead, Carl.
All right, Maxine Waters, Sheila Jackson Lee, they haven't used anybody. The African-American communities elect them as their elected officials. Why? Because they know that they speak with their voices and represent their interests. And that 18-year-old, if she had the proper educational background, the entire society wants her to go on to college and to do better regardless of what her file says.
Look, here's what blacks need to do as a community. And you can uplift any community. You can uplift a community not on its own, but as part of the greater population. But you can certainly keep it down by separating it. And the Democrats and the liberals have separated the so-called black community. There's no black, white, Hispanic, or Asian. There's an American mosaic, and we all are intertwined. By the way, just like in business, free market principles. Lift one up, lift the other one up. This is how it works.
You know, I like that point. Maybe that's an end point
sounds
here.
Wonderful,
Carl,
David.
my wife is Hispanic. She says, don't call me a minority. There is nothing minor about me. Can we finally get rid of that concept of minority?
You know what, David? That sounds wonderful, David,
okay.
But for the last 400 years, you guys have been calling us minorities. You've been calling us African Americans, Hispanics.
You guys,
now you're going to throw it out the window.
Have you looked at the color of my skin? Look,
all right,
there's only one race.
We got to leave it at that. We gave David the first, we give Carl the last. We got to do this again, guys. Let's do it for an hour. Thank you very much for